Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and the thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Original D Rose, Rod, The Named Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, John Travolta, JMels24, Yuya Memento, M, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKinnon, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealons, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google, but before I do, I'm going to do a quick plug to my Give, Send, Go campaign, which has got another contributor. So this is my Give, Send, Go campaign for Amps Go Down, Go Boom Boom, as I've just replaced, or am in the process of with this campaign, replacing some old equipment that keeps breaking. So I have actually achieved one of the amplifiers. I'm hoping to get 3, or ideally, in ideal circumstances, I'll get about half of the target that I've got here, so I can get one more amp and then not think about it, at least during the show. And then maybe I'll get a third one to offer myself some redundancy, so I'll never have to worry about it ever again. Whereas I've been stressing about this for several years. If you've been watching the show, you'll be well aware of that. But I did have an extra anonymous donor, so thank you very much indeed for your contribution, whoever you may be. I really appreciate it. And again, a massive thank you to Goldie as well for supporting that campaign. Now, if you did want to support the campaign, then click on, obviously, the give button at the top, and then I would suggest that you go down and just set the tip amount to 0. After you set the amount to whatever it is that you want to contribute, it'll give you an option to contribute to them, which is absolutely fine if you did want to do that. But as I say, I would suggest that you set it to other and then set the amount to 0. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, if you want to give to Give, Send, Go, then that's entirely up to you too. But thank you in advance to all of you who do support this campaign. But with that, I am going to hand over to whoever is in Discord and G+, so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Ready to go. I don't think they'll get away with it, though. Afternoon, Nathan.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Hey, Paul. Hey, Neil.
Hey, Nathan. Hey, Paul.
Hey.
Hey, the more guy was in chat the other day.
I don't know. I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah, DD mentioned it in I think the back office.
Okay, very good. And was that it?
Yeah, he was also saying that he thinks a lot more are going to be showing up since, Bob has passed away. That's what he seems to think.
Okay. I'm sure we'll get some crazy conspiratiredness. Hopefully we won't talk about that. Neil?
Not me. I didn't even know about it. Didn't find out till yesterday.
Yeah, I think I just got here, but I think I know what you're talking about, and we definitely should not talk about that. Ever.
What's this Cavendish thing that's posted? Somebody
Ask,
posted a video about Cavendish that we're going to go over, I guess.
Ask Flat Earth Society that just joined.
Afternoon.
Hello. Oh, is that you, Paul?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You've joined under
Oh, no,
Flat
you
Earths.
left as soon as the show ended, didn't you? So you wouldn't know what I said. Oh, okay.
Paul had an interesting idea about the buffer between normal people and us and the Flat Earth Society.
Okay. Which
Good morning,
was...
everybody.
Hello.
I was going to let Paul expand on it, but
Sorry, I'm talking to someone in Element as well, so I'm a
Okay.
bit distracted.
Well, when you're free,
It
let
was
us know.
a thought that because they push people towards the Flat Earth Society, what's to stop a load of us joining it and making it better? Because it's only active because of its members, and if we become a larger amount of the members, we can perhaps talk them round even, because they're just there because that's where they've been pointed.
I would suggest you speak to Mark Sargent because he did exactly that. So, he just went and joined as a member. So he may give you a better idea of what that involves, or what it may achieve, or what may be achievable if we were to do that. So the first
What
thing
I
I would
was
do
going
is
to check with you though is which one is the main one, because there's the flatearthsociety.org and then there's the initials of flatearthsociety.org. There's two as far as I can tell.
I don't know.
Maybe Adam would know.
Mark would know. Mark Sargent.
Oh,
Have you got his
okay.
details?
No.
I'll give you his details, and I'll let him know that you'll be contacting him to talk about Flat Earth
Okay, thank
Society.
you.
He's a very good. He's a nice guy. I'll talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah, that would be
definitely
mine.
an interesting concept. It's like stealing the cop car to arrest the,
No, I see where you're going with it. If they own that conduit and everyone's directed to that conduit, and we happen to be there when they get there, then that benefits us.
Yeah, it's like it's commandeering a vehicle instead of building one from scratch, basically.
Can I ask one deck a question?
I don't think that's allowed.
Yeah.
All right, never mind, Nathan. Shut me down.
Just joking. Just joking.
One deck. Did you by chance get to catch the show yesterday?
I didn't know, mate. I've been working all weekend on the bank holiday. I've not had a chance.
Well, there was an epiphany found that "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," the kids' nursery rhyme, is potentially related to flat Earth and navigation. And I just had a personal request to see if maybe you could go kind of look into that and then maybe write your own little remix for us.
That's a fact, buddy.
It's a Flat Earth poem because it's specifically referencing celestial navigation and finding your way when lost with the stars. Well, you can't get an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline. It could only be referencing a flat Earth. That's how it's done with angles. I was so
Also,
tempted.
we make no.
Go on.
Also, we make no claims on what the stars are. So, how I wonder what you are is definitely along lines of our thinking.
Absolutely. I was so tempted to trim that out, so I listened to that again after the show. I thought, should I trim this out? Maybe I will.
It's a very long poem. I didn't know it was that long.
Designed to send kids to sleep, I guess. I said it then and I'll say it now. All roads lead to flat Earth.
Well, they kind of have to be,
Mm-hmm.
Nathan. Like Mark Simmons when he's talking about, it's Photoshop, but it has to be.
And it has to be the case that that is the case. Say again.
Flat Earth.
Say again, Rayleigh Criterion. My bad.
Yeah, it's all elevation angles lead to flat Earth.
Yeah, in the most direct way. But I mean more than that. I mean, for us to be right in the debate, so if it was 2015 again, and someone said, well, do you realise what rides on you being right? It means that you'd have to show that everything was always utilising a flat Earth because it is a flat Earth. How are you going to do that? Now, back in 2015, you go, wow, what a daunting task. You've got to show that it is actually all utilising a flat plane, always, because it can't not be. If it is flat, it has to be utilised that way. In the same way we say to the sphere believers, if it's a sphere, you've got to start utilising it as a sphere, not making conversions, not using angles that can't be measured off a sphere. None of that. You've got to actually utilise it as a sphere if it's a sphere. The fact that you don't means it isn't. But by contrast, the same is true of us. Everything, for us to be true, for us to be correct, all roads must lead to a flat Earth. It can't not be the case. So every time it happens, yeah, I chuckle with glee. Oh, look, it's flat Earth again. Yeah, but of course it is. It can't not be that way. So in one way, I should be very nonchalant about it. Well, of course, that's underwhelming. Of course it leads to a flat Earth. Earth is flat. It's going to be measured that way. It's going to be navigated that way. That makes perfect sense. But on the other hand, why you look at the poems talking about navigation? That's a flat Earth proof. Now, I don't think that excitement will ever recede, for me.
Speaking of excitement, did you see Brian's recent video about 306 over 6R?
I caught a little bit of it after he told me on the show that that was what it was about. Yes.
Well, it's actually ITWW over 6R.
I don't know what that means.
It's worse than that over 6R.
It's worse than that over 6R. Okay. Have you been doing a bit of maths, have you?
Yeah, me, Adam, and Brian were going over his conversion. He used a linear function instead of a curvilinear delineation for his 306 over 6R. So it's actually like three.
With a bloody amateur mistake, linear function rather than the curvilinear. What's he doing, eh? Bloody amateur.
But yeah, it's like 3,460 over 6R or something like that.
3,460 over what?
6.
Over 6R. Well, okay. That's a big old number right there. That's very, very, very flat, isn't it?
What are we talking about here? Really?
Just mucking about with maths. That's what we're doing, really.
Oh, the same mathematics that they use, but we use them correctly.
No, there is no correct.
Well,
There's no application in reality. So they do it, we do it. We know we're mucking about with maths when we talk about this. If we calculate out the presumed radius of a geometric horizon below surface level to be 368.395 over 6R, we're just mucking about with maths. It's mental masturbation. They think it's real, though.
they were complaining that he did the math wrong. So we, in our due diligence, wanted to look it over, and yeah, it was actually worse than what they were complaining about.
On the other hand, the moment you beg the question alongside them, like in the days of using the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth code calculator, once they can ascribe a value to it, so it's 4,396 over 7R. Okay. Is it? Yeah, you've just done the calculations for it. You just told me, would be my attitude if I was a baller. Well, no, that we're pointing out the absurdity of it. We're showing how silly it is. No, that's the value, would be my response if I was a globe-believing muppet. Well done for begging the question for me. Now I can take that value and say yes, absolutely.
That value is still below surface level.
Yeah, I can see that too.
The horizon below the surface level.
Yes. My point is that when you get to the point with someone like the Rumpus, where they have to concede some very detrimental, in terms of the physical transposition from maths to reality of their claim, in this instance a geometric horizon or refracted value of a target, at an absurd value, they will simply take that value to be the value, to take it as an affirmation. And if you point out that it's below surface level in the maths, they go, yeah, my Earth curve that I still believe in as a result of this affirmation you are giving me, because you've begged the question for me, is the affirmation that it is that value over 6R. Thank you very much for
It
doing the
can't
maths.
be, though.
Why not? That's what you do if you're looking for confirmation bias, however weak. If you've done the maths, all that needs to be done in this... I'll just make my point. So long as the question's been begged, it could be 20 billion over R, John. But
Right.
20 million
But
over R? 20 million over 6R, you say? Yes, that's correct, John. 20 million over 6R for this observation. And then Earth's a sphere. Okay? Are we clear?
Hold on. The funny thing is it started out because I just done a fraction reduction on 306 over 6R, and it come out to 51 times the radius. And that's really all their refraction is a claimed inflation of a sphere. And so, like, it made the math not line up when Brian heard it. He's like, no, that can't be right. I was like, no, that's what it, you just told us. It's 51 times the size of the radius. He's like, no, it's worse than that. So we had to go back through the math and figure out where he messed up to the 3. It was a funny story, and you have ruined it, Nathan. You've absolutely ruined it.
I haven't ruined it. I'm saying that once you're assuming Earth's a sphere and then calculating how much over 6R a value would need to be based on an observation, you've already lost. As harsh as that may sound, because you're pointing out within the begging the question fallacy the absurdity of the mathematical value that comes out at the end of that process. I get it. But like I tried to drill into Anthony Riley for years, the moment you beg the question for them, that's it, you've lost. Because at the end of this process, I can just take the value you spit out and go, yes, that's correct. I remember Ruhif once saying it could be infinite over 6R. In other words, any value that's calculable, he'll say that is the value. So you're never going to win on the fact that it's absurd. They'll just say, yes, that's right, that is the value. 4,630 over 6R, you say? That's correct. Because it was a very clear day, therefore lots and lots and lots of refraction. 4,360 over 6R, to be precise. Thank you for working it out for me. Earth is a sphere.
I see what you're saying.
Are they really claiming that it's expanding in size in an isolated environment, but not the rest of it?
No, it's not that they have to explicitly claim it. That is what's happening. That's what over 6R does. That's what it's doing. It's physically inflating the size of the sphere. That's what it's doing.
Yeah. Hold on. What about the celestial bodies then? How does that work out?
It doesn't.
We don't talk about that.
I do as a flat earther. It doesn't. When we told them in 2020, no, you can't refract the R value. It's fixed. It's set in stone. It's derived from the flat earth elevation angle measurements to the stars over certain locations at certain times of the day. That is set in stone. They've back calculated it from those star movements. Can't start fiddling with it. 3959 is set. Cannot change. They've got to massage it somehow. That's where you get refraction come in. How can they change the value that cannot be changed? Well, they can apply it to an observation in a camera. Does it apply in celestial navigation? No, it does not. Your accuracy decreases at about 15 degrees above the horizon. Why? Well, they say because of refraction. All right, okay. Well, is there any other refraction that we need to take into consideration when we're doing it accurately? No. What about when you're converting it to a sphere from a flat plane with the elevation angle measurements to Polaris? No, it's set in stone. The conversion leaves it at 3959. That value can't change.
Interestingly enough, hold on just one sec. I have yet to hear a baller say there's a refracted horizon below the horizon we see. Are you saying they would say that if
Yeah.
we pointed it out to them in the math?
Indeed. If you point out how the
Oh my
maths...
goodness. I wanna
let me
do
just
that.
phrase it in a way that will make you understand. So you're going to show me how the maths works, open brackets, proving a sphere, close brackets. John?
I don't know if I'm going to show you that, but I'm going to show you it below sea level.
But that's how it
Well, if
works, right? That's how it works. Correct, John? I'm not going to say in the maths, although I technically just did.
If you misinterpret it, yes.
No, that is how it works. Works in the maths. It is doing that in the maths, isn't it? Below surface level, which I completely concede. That's correct, proving a sphere.
No. That's a misinterpretation. That's not fair. I can't tell them that it works. I'd be lying to them if I said yes.
That's how it functions in the maths, though, isn't it? I'll reword it.
No, that's actually not the function in the mathematics. It's a derivation of height and angle to the horizon. It's not Earth curve in the math.
It is in the diagram.
No, that just because somebody mislabeled it, the components of a mathematical formula doesn't make it that. I can't, in good conscience, tell them that that's how it works.
You don't have to, because if the horizon is below surface level, then your elevation angle would be off so bad that the sextant and everything else couldn't work. And if the horizon is changing, because they're physically inflating the Earth, one day it's here and another day it's there, it wouldn't work either. So it can't be below surface level. The height of eye correction already is a set number based on where you are on your boat or yacht above sea level. That never changes. So if it's 9 feet at the dock when you measured it, it's 9 feet in the middle of the ocean. The horizon is never changing below surface level.
So Ted, you're saying nobody celestial navigation would not work?
Of course it wouldn't. Well, celestial navigation is based on a right angle, and that's why you do height of eye correction, so that you don't have an obtuse angle. If it's below surface level, it would be an obtuse angle. You wouldn't have that 90 to subtract from.
Well, that and the definition of horizon has surface level in it.
Yeah, horizontal. The perpendicular relationship.
I'm a bit lost. So, which horizon are we talking about again?
The one we see.
But you said the geometric horizon that was below surface level, and now you've just clarified that the composition of the horizon would include the surface level. So that would give us 2 horizons, though, would it not?
That's actually not the geometric horizon that is in that mathematics. That's the angular horizon. Your angle to the horizon, I guess would be better to say.
That's not marked in the geometric begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. There's only one horizon marked in that calculation. The surface level's marked out as well, but it doesn't have a horizon marked on it. It only has one. But you're saying the one that we see is based on the surface level.
Well, yeah, it's where the surface level appears to meet the sky.
Ah, well, that's where the confusion is. So, according to this mathematics, there's 2 horizons then.
No, that's the circle you would experience, right? If you put an orthographic view at set heights and the angle to that circle. And it's got a curvilinear function as you raise in height. That's why they confused part of the,
It's surplus to requirement, Nathan, just like the dingleberry.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And I'm also going to do a quick shout out to my own Give, Send, Go campaign, as it did recently have another contributor add to that fund. So thank you very much indeed to the anonymous contributor who recently supported it yesterday. So hopefully I'm hoping to get about halfway to my target so I can replace at least one more amplifier and keep the show going without stressing about it on an almost daily basis. So hopefully you'll smash that link, and if indeed you don't, go and share it. There's a very convenient share button in Give, Send, Go. So share the link if you can't indeed afford to support it. If you do, thank you very much in advance. Now we are joined by Neil, Refracted Curvature, Flat Earth Society, that's Paul, and 10th Man, together with a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Hello.
Good morning. Good
Take
morning.
it. Yes, take it.
Yeah.
Take it.
Take it.
What's going on? Crazy
That's
intro.
an inside joke. That's an inside joke. Don't worry about it.
Okay, well, we might be covering a bit of Cavendish today, so we'll start off with any scientific evidence of gravity.
What is it? Can you define it first?
I need to define. I'm not claiming it.
Well, you said gravity. All I'm saying, okay, how would the ballers define it then?
You would think both or all the gravities that they think of would be the mechanics of how you stick to the side of a sphere.
Okay, that's close enough. So something that has a force on something that's spinning to keep you stuck instead of flying off.
Look, if you've got a problem that needs solving, there's always the magic of gravity there to solve that problem. People spinning off a ball, flying off into space, gravity will solve that problem. Air not forming pressure without containment, gravity will solve that problem.
How does it do with pimples when you're 14 years old?
Gravity. The question on the table.
It is sort of like
any scientific evidence of gravity?
No scientific evidence for it. It's never been observed. I don't see, never have seen mass attract mass. I mean, I know magnets do something that would be similar to what they want to see, but then why don't I see gravity doing what magnets do, or whatever this gravity thing is?
Well, like you say, what's gravity? But moreover, why would we ask for scientific evidence if we're struggling to define what it is for the audience's benefit? Why would we be asking for scientific evidence of something that is so difficult to actually define and often gets defined as something that's 108 years out of date? So why would we specifically ask for scientific evidence of gravity? Anybody at all?
Well, because if it's just so story, you made it up, then you wouldn't have any kind of proof for it. Whereas if you go scientific, then you would have a hypothesis and you'd have experimentation to be repeatable, observable. It's something that everyone could do on their own and say, yeah, this vets out through scientific methodology.
No,
but they
that's
don't have
not
that.
correct. No, that would be a standard that we would impose on ourselves were we to go out and make claims about something. But that is not why we ask for scientific evidence of gravity. The reason we ask for scientific evidence of gravity is because they are claiming they have science for it. That's why we ask for the science. Oh, gravity is science. We should just understand it as being proven. It's science. All right. Okay. Well, let's see the scientific evidence for it then, given that they claim there is some. So their claim is that the whole body of science proves we have gravity. And they have poster child like Neil deGrasse Tyson professing the science of gravity to his audience. Based on that, okay, fine. They say there's science for this crap. Let's see it.
Right. They're also claiming a causal mechanism within the natural world, which is exclusively the purview of science.
Perfect. That's where I was going to go next if someone else didn't. Thank you very much indeed. They're claiming cause and effect relationships in the physical and natural world. That is exclusively within the purview of science and the scientific method. Ergo, when you assert a cause and effect relationship based on a phenomena that they assert, then you can ask them for scientific evidence based on that as a justification for asking for it. It's within the realm. Now, what they do in terms of pseudo-force space and Earth moving up at 9.8 meters per second in Einsteinian fourth-dimensional gravity is they move the goalposts one position over. So, fall arrest, not moving, sat still, you're ascribed 1g. All right, okay, but I'm not moving. Yeah, well, if you start falling towards your death, that's 0. Effectively nothing happening. You can watch the buildings rise up until you splat on the ground, but that's 0. They've just moved the standard so that nothing happening is a force of 1g. But 1g is actually a bending of a fourth-dimensional pseudo-Riemannian force space-time with a geodesic moving through space dimensions that aren't real. Meanwhile, here in the land of the living, not moving gives you a force of 1g, and moving gives you 0. That's their claim. Speaking of which,
Which is nuts.
so we've got, might as well ask the other question. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Gravity.
Negative. Get to the video.
Gravity. I used that trick already. You can't do that.
Is if mass, then mass attracts mass, not an acceptable scientific hypothesis?
Perfect. So we're going to be covering Flat Earth and the Cavendish Experiment Debunk the Funk #13 by Mr. Lund Science. Okay, great title. Great channel name. So check this guy out. Let him know. As always, Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and in the nicest possible way, let them know that we responded to their video. Now, like with all the videos that we cover here, I'm going in completely blind. I've no idea if this is friend or foe, or if they've got good or bad information. Either way, we have covered them, and hopefully you will help them in the algorithm by letting them know with a comment that we have sent you there, and that will help them in their YouTube success. Hopefully, were they to respond, this person's got about the same number of subscribers as we have. Hopefully he'd put a link, or she, to this channel, helping us in the algorithm where we get no support from YouTube. So, please let them know. You can see it going by in the live stream chat now. Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Because we love your video. Or didn't, as the case may be. We'll find out. Any comments before we start? Looking at you, Neil, and looking at you, Ten.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, Chocolate.
Good morning, Choco.
No comments from me.
No comments. Let's get at it.
Oh, why have I got no...
Spray our skies, interact with the magnetic chemicals.
Space travel is Mars rover is a complete...
I've got to be honest, that was a good intro. I'm impressed.
Well, you weren't ready for it. It
Welcome to another
destroyed
episode
my
of Debunk the
ears.
Yeah, it's all gone downhill immediately when we've got his echoey, skateboardy mic a million miles away, can't hear what he's saying. It's all gone downhill within the first 30 seconds. But good intro.
Hello? Is my mic shitty again?
It's all right. We can hear you, Owen, at this point. It's not our priority, but yes, you sound fine.
Funk.
All right.
I'm very excited to bring this one to you. In the 2 most recent episodes of Debunk the Funk, we've been examining how the flat Earth idea tries to handle gravity.
Okay, so we're straight into a burden of proof reversal fallacy. We don't claim gravity, Dumbo. It's not our burden. It's yours. Prove gravity. It's your claim. You know, what you mean is you want to get into some of the debunkings of your claim of gravity. Is that what you mean by that? How the flat earthers handle? What are you talking about? You mean you're talking about potential debunks that you're going to try and undo? Try and make some coherent sense in English.
In Debunk the Funk number 11, we explained why the flat earth idea is incompatible with the...
Right, flat earth idea again. What do you mean the flat earth idea? Either it's a response to a claim, bearing in mind this is about gravity and Cavendish. That's your claim. So what our ideas are about your claim?
The force of gravity. That
Gravity's not a force.
even if an Earth were flat, due to mass attracting mass, gravity would...
What? If Earth were flat due to mass attracting mass, that hasn't been the case for 108 years. You stupid idiot. Mr. Lund Science, how dare you sully the name of science with this garbage? Mass has not attracted mass for 108 years. It was superseded by fourth dimensional Einsteinian bending of geodesics in space-time. Mass doesn't attract mass. Have you looked up at a cloud recently? Is that going down, go boom boom towards the mass of Earth? Because it's got mass. Is it going down, Dumbo? No, mass isn't attracting mass, you complete idiot. Go on, Chocolate.
Nathan. No, that was Neil. Now it's me. Nathan, this is very important. He's already got everyone into debating the question of gravity by the way he started it out. I know it's obvious, but please explain to the audience that first statement, your first response to what he said. It's not our claim. It's very important.
We don't claim gravity. Gravity is a necessity for a bullshit sphere in a vacuum model. That's what they have got it for. Originally, so they could keep everyone antipode from each other on the bottom of a spinning ball Earth, not flying off into space. But then 108 years ago, it was superseded by a further heliocentric concept from Einstein, which was the bending of geodesics in space-time, space-time being the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension being invented conceptually in mathematics by Einstein, and no longer a force. Quote, George Musa, Scientific American. Gravity is not a force. End quote. Maybe Professor Brian Cox. There isn't really a force of gravity at all. End quote. Professor Brian Cox. So what part of this gives this Dumbo the notion that his 108-year out-of-date notion of mass attracting mass is in any way correct? And somehow that we have to be giving our ideas about their claim that's 108 years out of date, that mass attracts mass? Who gives a toss what my ideas are about it? It's your claim. So you, the claimant, need to prove, as the claimant, that mass attracts mass as you are claiming it, as opposed to discuss what our ideas are about your claim that's out of date by 108 years, and very specifically detailed as not being a force by your pseudoscience priests. So this isn't something that you need to challenge my ideas on. I don't have any ideas on gravity. I asked the Dumbos who claim it to prove it. Good enough, 10th?
Oh, perfect.
Pull the matter into the most stable position, minimizing distance, producing the most compacted three-dimensional shape possible.
Now do that with helium. Mold helium into the most stable shape possible. Can you do that? What's that you say? Has helium not got mass? In your vernacular of mass? I'm pretty sure it does have mass. What about steam? Yeah? What about water vapour? Has that got mass? It was recently water till it heated up. You're telling me it just absolves itself of mass? Yeah, do that with water vapour, please. Yeah, gather it together. What's that? You can't do that? That's because mass doesn't attract mass, you complete idiot.
In other words, a flat Earth cannot exist if gravity exists because...
Well, given that gravity isn't existing because I've just debunked it by pointing out that you can't do this with helium, which has mass in your estimation. So what, that debunks the notion of a globe then, doesn't it? Yeah, but you've got a burden of proof reversal fallacy on your hands where he's juxtaposing his claim he hasn't proven with how it works on a flat Earth. I'm not claiming this, you stupid clown.
Because gravity would pull the flat Earth into a sphere.
Pull? What, like a force? What part of there isn't really a force of gravity at all, end quote, Professor Brian Cox, doesn't this dumb shit understand? Yeah, it hasn't been a force pulling anything for 108 years. You stupid idiot.
I think he made a big mistake there. He said flat Earth cannot exist if gravity exists. Well, he hasn't proven gravity exists. So when he realizes it's 108 years old and it's never been proven, then the globe can't exist. It's the opposite.
I think that's what he meant. That it's the globe that can't exist without his nonsensical gravity notion. He's got it completely twisted. You're absolutely right, Tim.
Well, it's
But
their
see,
God,
but
right?
see, these are the videos that they put out, and people hear them and say, "Oh, they debunked flat Earth." Look, without doing any research.
Well, gravity is their God. It does everything for them.
How then do flat Earth proponents reconcile their beliefs with that of gravity?
Right, you have a belief in 108-year out-of-date rhetoric that's been superseded, and you're asking your audience how we, the flat earthers who don't claim gravity, reconcile a 108-year out-of-date force. I don't. I have absolutely zero requirement to reconcile anything. You haven't proven anything, and the thing you're claiming's out of date.
I would like to point out to this gentleman that we don't believe the earth is flat. We measure it that way. And
Bingo.
so do you. And so does his priests and people he relies on for information. So I don't appreciate being told that I believe the earth is flat.
That's way too advanced for dude. He needs to get over that gravity is not even a force. That Cavendish is not an experiment. Apparently this is about Cavendish. Did he call it an experiment? That's hilarious.
No, I'm with John.
Yeah, that's way too advanced for him.
And it's just pure projection, isn't it, John? That's what you're saying, right? Now, I don't appreciate you claiming that I need to prove a belief in a measured flat Earth when you believe in a 108-year out-of-date force of mass attracting mass. You are the one with the belief, and you're asking me to justify my belief in it and square the circle of your crap of gravity. How outrageous. Pure projection, mate. You believe in this crap. So what, I've got to justify something and square the circle of our gravity would work on a flat... No, I don't have to do any of that. You need to prove your belief in this crap that's 108 years out of date.
Isn't this just typical? Don't they always end up doing this? Right? So they're in a position, they don't know how to get out of it. So how do they get out of it? By projecting onto us their position, like they are the winners in the argument. It's like just subtly switching roles in the middle of a play and then hope nobody catches on. That's basically what they're doing.
That
It's akin to the you and your reference frames are ruined. That's what that's akin to. That's exactly what that's akin to.
Right. They're not really having to work on the really is level. We do work on the really is level. Then they claim that we are the ones that are not really working on the really is level. And they just flip it around.
Quick shout out to Godzilla37. This is another grown man describing his imaginary friend to us with such certainty. Where do you find these comedy videos? Thank you very much for the super chat. They get shared with me. I'm doing this blind. I've never met this guy. I've never covered this guy. I don't watch his videos. I have no idea who he is. But immediately he's got me outraged because he's reversed the burden on a claim he hasn't proven. And then told me that I'm believing in things. What an outrage.
I'd like to comment.
Go ahead.
I'd like to comment. Do you think, now obviously we don't know, but do you think this guy is not aware of Einsteinian 4D space?
I don't know. I couldn't divine his thoughts. What I know is what he said to camera. And he said that there's a force.
Okay, so this can go one of two ways.
How we get around that little problem? No, there isn't a problem. There isn't a force. How do I square it on a flat? I don't have to. You need to prove it's true, especially as it's out of date. That's what we've got so far.
Well, it could be only one of two possibilities. He either doesn't know and he's stuck to the so-called mass attracts mass, which has no proof, or he does know and knows that it's no longer a force. It can't be both.
Do you think this grown man-child knows about pseudo-Riemannian force space-time? He's got skateboards in the background with skulls on them. This grown man-child doesn't know about pseudo-force space-time bending and geodesics. He's talking about forces of mass-attracting mass with skateboards in the background. Why, are you 10?
Tracked other objects.
It almost feels like these educational videos for people that haven't actually conversated with the flat earther, right? Because the way he presents his stance is as if he's never talked to a flat earther, because he's proposing that we that we're still rolling with gravity. There's not a single flat earther out there that believes in gravity at all. So it's like it's almost like this is educational material for the common person who has heard of a flat earther and heard of basic generic responses from them. And we're just going to go ahead and address those and shut them down without actually diving into the facts of the information. That's what it really sounds like.
It's some dick who's completely out of his wheelhouse. Like, shouldn't you be doing ollies and grinds? Yeah? And talking to people in some crazy accent and calling everybody bro? Yeah, with your Mario t-shirt and your skateboards. Yeah, that's what you should be doing. Yeah? Don't dabble in this subject, you complete buffoon. Because you'll be embarrassed by me, pointing out that you're talking about stuff that's literally over 100 years out of date. Like a complete idiot. You got the nerve to address your audience on a subject you've not even researched. Like, literally, you don't even know your own rhetoric correctly. 4 more hours, says JMels24. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it.
Why objects fall to the earth.
Really? So clouds go down, go boom boom, do they, dum-dum? Clouds falling, right? Gas produced in the sky falling down, making puddles. Puddles of helium going down, right? No, you stupid idiot. No, things aren't falling to the ground. Yeah, some things go up. Is this some sort of revelation to you? Have you never seen a cloud? Are you too busy looking at your skateboard to not realise that gas is going up? Yeah, it's all produced at ground level and makes its way up, dissipating as it does so. Some of it forms into cycles. Yeah, that's how gas behaves. Gas that in your current rhetoric, 108 years out of date even though it is, has mass. Is that going down, dum-dum? Going down, go boom boom, go splash splash. Gas is forming puddles, right? Yeah, looks at cloud, releases helium balloon, and looks at some dumb idiot out of his wheelhouse with skateboards behind him, talking about mass attracting mass. What an idiot!
Well, in the mathematical description of mass, you need volume and density. When did he measure the volume of Earth to be asserting it in this mathematical formula?
He did it when he was grinding a handrail.
In terms of why objects fall to the earth...
Sorry, clouds fall to the earth, do they? Dum-dum? That's why the clouds are falling? Oh my god, the clouds... No, they're not falling, you stupid idiot. Yeah, releases helium balloon and looks at you in the eye and asks, shouldn't you be out skateboarding, dum-dum? Is that helium balloon going towards the ground? Is that what it's doing? No, maybe the gases around it are falling because of all the oxygen factories in the sky pouring out masses of gas go down, go boom boom. No, it's all produced at the ground and going up. So what the hell are you talking about? Stick to skateboarding.
Episode number 11 examined the most common flat...
You got more than one episode on this shit. Why?
Earth go-to explanation that...
Right, why is it that you've got something in the background that debunks you? You've got a hot air balloon behind you. Is that going down? What a dick.
No.
Yeah, it's just literally put up a slide of a hot air balloon.
What is wrong with these guys, man?
He's stupid. Maybe he hit his head on the pavement too many times doing grinds on handrails. Did you smack your head? This isn't going down. Did you fall on the pavement too many times? Is that what happened?
Go
ahead.
Safety first, kids. Always wear your helmet. Brain damage is real.
Yeah, don't be like this guy. Like, really stupid. Putting up a slide of something not going down. Yeah? Wear a helmet when skateboarding so you don't end up brain damaged.
Yeah, he's definitely got a hot air balloon, which is weird, as he's asking why do things go down, and he's got something that doesn't. That's adorable, brother.
Gravity doesn't exist, and that's not why objects fall, but that it's all about density, somehow. So, in that episode, a demonstration was set up that established that there is indeed a force in the downward direction, and it did so in a way that density is useless to explain.
So if I tied a helium balloon instead of this weight, would it have a different effect? Would it go down towards the ground? What about the clouds? What about the gas you're breathing? Are you licking the gas up off the puddles? What about it being all around you in all directions, going up? What about if you go to the top of a mountain? What about if you get to the top of Everest? There's not much vegetation producing gas there. Can you still breathe on the top of Everest? Yeah, you can. Why would that be? Is it because the gases have gone down when they were all produced where the heavy vegetation was and made its way up? Yeah? But what? There's nothing to show that density... Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Anthony Riley did his experiment about 3 years ago, showing relative density disequilibrium with a scientific, validated, hypothesis-based experiment. So we've got scientific validity beyond relative density, and you've got this. What about something that's lighter than air?
Did he say that with the hot air balloon still behind him?
No, he's got a weight instead of a hot air balloon, and he's going, no, there's definitely a downward bias.
Okay.
Thick.
Adorable.
Just thick.
Episode number 11 debunked the flat Earth density explanation for...
Right, we don't need a density explanation. We haven't got a claim in this regard. Are you ever going to get off this tip? This burden of proof reversal fallacy tip? Because I don't have any necessity to explain relative density disequilibrium. We do because you have a positive claim about it. And we do because we have fallen victim to other idiots like you who reverse the burden and ask us to explain why some things go down and some things, looks up at clouds, go up. Now we can, although there's no necessity to, explain this. And we have validated it with science. You, on the other hand, are appealing to all things going down towards the centre of mass of Earth. When we have clouds and hot air balloons. Yeah? Not falling down. And the gas itself, which these solid items you are showing are displacing, that's air, moves in all vectors. All vectors. Not just down. Things move through air. Now, depending on their density, they might go up and they might go down. But that's something I can prove with science. It's not this garbage that's 108 years out of date.
Gravity, showing that it can only handle certain cherry-picked situations, but falls apart under other easily observable situations. Another, admittedly less common flat Earth explanation for gravity.
We don't have to explain gravity. We aren't claiming it.
Recognizes that, yes, there is a force of attraction for all objects in the downward direction.
Like a helium balloon and a cloud. Yeah, that kind of downward direction. Yeah?
And that hot air balloon that was behind them 5 minutes ago.
The hot air balloon go down, go boom boom. Yeah, and we can explain why the hot air balloon went down. It didn't.
I have a prediction.
Say again.
I have a prediction. He's getting ready to go into the Ethereum's claim of electrostatics, because that's a lot easier. That's a lot easier to deal with if you're a gravity believer.
Oh, well, then he's misappropriating this claim from Ethereans. That's not flat earthers. You know, we aren't Ethereans. We don't claim electrostatic gravitation. That's not something we claim as flat earthers. Now, there are other people out there who may also believe that the earth is flat, who make up non-scientifically validated garbage and talk about things like counter space. Now, you can ask them about this crap and watch them waffle about things that they can't prove either. But that's not us.
But that force is not gravity. Instead, the force of attraction is due to all objects, including the Earth, having a charge, and that the attractive force is somehow due to these charges.
What attractive force?
What? Oh boy.
Go on.
Can I just go back a sec? My mic weren't working there. There was a point you make. Talking vectors. Consider things on a flat Earth. We do. There is a vector of down that is commensurate with anywhere else you're standing on the plane. But when he talks about down, he doesn't have a similar vector anywhere else on his ball planet. All he has is what you alluded to, Nathan, which is a direction to the center of mass. It's different to down because it's never the same vector. It's not a direction in their world down. Somebody's feedback from me. It's not a direction, whereas it is here. We can determine it, and it will have a orientation which will match. But on a ball, that's never possible. Moot, I know, but
Debunk the funk number 12 using what we can already know about electric charges from first-hand experience. I showed how a charge explanation for gravity cannot be true, equipped with just a balloon and some pieces of paper.
What, with them going up? What? This makes no sense.
Well, now it's time to look at an area of flat Earth's denial of gravity
This is what Brian warned about a while back. Why I was given emissary to the Ethereans, to deal with this crap. And now it's out there, isn't it? Look, and we're being challenged on it, and we're being held that that's now our belief as well.
Not just Brian, Neil too.
And Neil, of course, he was a big exponent of pointing out that. But we did warn a year, 2 years ago, and now it's there on more popular channels, straw manning us with this crap like it's ours.
You all seem to agree upon. If you've never seen it or just need a quick review, here's the equation that describes Newton's law of gravitational force.
New tax year, growing businesses.
Two objects will both experience is a product of the two objects' masses and will be inversely proportional to the square of their distance apart. When it comes to the strength of gravity, mass matters and closeness matters.
So if you've got two particles of gas pretty close, they're going to attract, right? Is that right?
That does say that mass, that formula specifically states, terrible feedback. I don't know who's coming from you or so I drop and come back, but I've lost my point now.
You were talking about the equation.
Yeah. Well, that's no, it's still gone.
Trying to gather that thought. I figured. Sorry, Tom, real quick. While you're trying to gather that thought, Adam, let me spit out a quote to this man who just called Newtonian gravity a force and tried to give us an equation for it. Mr. George Musser, quote, we can, we do, we must consider Newtonian gravity as a force. Now, to paraphrase, this is the part I want you to listen very close to. It doesn't mean it really is one, but we don't necessarily have to work at the really is level. End quote.
Can you pull that equation up again?
Yeah, thank you. It's come back to me now. It was just a one-liner, Q. So again, that's mass attracting mass that he's quoting in the equation that he's going to use to validate it. The premise of that is mass attracts mass, which he's already admitted is false. Therefore, the equation has to be false. If mass doesn't attract mass, what use is that equation?
No, it's not my point.
No, that was mine. That I had a bit of Alzheimer's for a second there, QA, and my brain emptied.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir, man. Can you pull that equation back up again? He said that was Newton's universal law of gravitation, please. Can you pull it up?
It's not, is it? Because that's why I was looking at it and thinking, I didn't think it mattered what M1 was if M2 was massive.
No, it has. That's not Newton's universal law of gravitation because it's got G in it.
Okay, so what quantum eraser is saying is because this has G in it, this is not Newton's. This is Reverend John Michel C.V. Boy's Cavendish gravity, correct?
Yes. You won't find that in the Principia.
Yeah, you won't find out in that. It doesn't exist.
Just a point of order, Your Honor. And could he define mass for us, please?
Yeah, my line is feeding back into the G+ Hangout. You were right, Adam. Okay. Can you guys talk amongst yourselves while I sort that out?
Sure. Yeah.
Put yourself on mute, Nathan.
Also, after he defines what mass is in that equation, could he tell us how he got the M2 in that equation, how he measured that? I would love to hear that.
Huey, he wants us to talk. Go ahead and talk about the G thing and not in the Principia.
The G thing. Sounds like a song.
The G
You're a
thing.
bad
Well,
man,
there's not too much to talk about. He said that was Newton's universal law of gravitation. If you look in the Principia, Adam, that's not in there. So his equation's off. That's what I've been saying for years. They don't even know what they're talking about. They have no idea. They don't even know what Newton's universal law of gravitation is. I'm talking about baltards like this moron. They're just parroting wiki or something that they heard.
Sorry to do this. Can
This
I get
is straight
sorry,
from
just one
wiki.
sec. Can I get you guys from Discord just to say something, just to see if it carries the line across to G+?
Amen.
No, it does not.
Yeah, it sounds all right.
Yeah, but they're not getting your signal anymore. Okay, right, carry on.
Well, Newton's law of universal gravitation is usually stated that every particle attracts every other particle in the universe with a force that is proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance, which is what he's put up.
It has G.
Yeah. So what we're saying is it's the false ascribing to Newton for this formula.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the formula is bunk. It's not
Also,
Newton.
what did Newton say about someone who believed that there was a force that was acting across distance without any mediation of an agent? There was
They
a
need to
quote.
institutionalize. They need to be institutionalized per Newton.
Yep.
Okay.
What was
Says
it?
it here.
Constant faculty of reasoning.
The first test of Newton's law of gravitation between masses in a lab was the Cavendish experiment, taking place 111 years after the publication of Newton's Principia and approximately 71 years after his death. It's just to put that into perspective as to why and how they're ascribing that to Newton.
Somebody copied that off somebody else.
This is straight wiki. This is, like I said, this was just a straight wiki search to see where he's got it from.
It's a shame that a man who would say that anybody that believed this crap didn't have a competent faculty of reason would be ascribed to this.
I can read
I
it
bet
for
he's
you,
fuming,
John.
really, isn't he?
It is inconceivable that inanimate brute matter should, without the mediation of something else which is not material, operate upon the effect and affect other matter without mutual contact, as it must be. If gravitation, in the sense of Epicurus, be essential and inherent in it, and this is one reason why I desired you would not ascribe innate gravity to me, that gravity should be innate, inherent, and essential to matter, so that one body may act upon another at a distance through a vacuum, without the mediation of anything else, by and through which their action and force may be conveyed from one to another, is to me so great an absurdity that I believe no man who has in philosophical matters a competent faculty of thinking can ever fall into. Gravity must be caused by an agent acting constantly according to certain laws. But whether this agent be material or immaterial, I have left open to the consideration of my readers.
Newton's gravity. Give it to him.
Okay, right. I can't figure out this audio issue at this point, so I'll have to do it at a later stage. So if you are getting a bit of feedback in G+, my bad.
And will be inversely proportional to the square of their distance apart. When it comes to the strength of gravity, mass matters and closeness matters. So now that that's been reviewed, well, that's what Flat Earth seems to unanimously reject. They feel that Newton's law of gravitation is a lie, that it cannot be observed. You would not be able to demonstrate in a at-home or classroom setup mass attracting mass.
No, we just show gas behavior.
Well, here's where the Cavendish
He's
experiment
correct
comes in.
there, isn't he? We would say that in any form of experimentation, it is impossible to show mass attracting mass. It's not something that's seen in the natural world. It's not something we could classify as a phenomena. It is only seen in the Cavendish experiment if you allow your ignorance to make you believe that what you're seeing in that polar trick is mass attracting mass, not any tension in the torsion bar. So I'd kind of agree with him that we would make that statement, that there is no demonstrable proof of mass attracting mass anywhere, not an experiment or even a demonstration.
Sorry, but why
He
ain't
s-
he
he
still
slipped.
dealing with mass
Go ahead.
attacking mass? I thought it's pseudo-ammonium phosphate. Is he not caught up?
He
No,
slipped
he's
in.
not
It
caught up.
depends on the. He slipped in there that it
He's not
depends. If you
caught
go
up,
back and
number
listen, he
one.
said it depends on the closeness of the mass.
He's
He
not
tried to
caught
slip
up,
that.
number one, and he hasn't defined mass. Why are you saying mass, mass, mass? What is it?
It's a calculation derived from weight.
He said mass attracts mass depending on the closeness of it. He slipped that in there.
He said
Well,
it's
if we take
inversely
Newton's
proportional, didn't he, to the distance?
if we take Newton's word for what they are, it just means this guy has no competent faculty of reason.
The gist of it is to have two masses hung in a way that is referred to as a torsion balance. The masses are hung in a way that allows them to be balanced, but also allows the entire balance to be relatively free to rotate.
All sounds very natural. So, step 1 in the scientific method, observe natural phenomena. Step 1 in the Cavendish quasi-experiment, string up some balls on strings. So this isn't a naturally occurring phenomena. The scientific method dictates that you would observe natural phenomena as step 1 of the method, then formulate a cause and effect reasoning statement called a hypothesis with the supposition of cause as your independent variable and the observed phenomena you are studying as the dependent variable. You are starting at the experiment. What I've just detailed was pre-experiment. Formulation of hypothesis after observing natural phenomena comes before the experiment. Then you vary that which you assume causes the effect to see if it causes it. You don't start with the experiment. This is pseudoscience.
The two hanging masses then
As I
are...
said earlier, Nate, just on that, that's where is the natural phenomena we are going to study occurring? It's not observed anywhere. Nowhere in the natural world do we see things moving sideways to each other because they have mass. But that's the claim of what this pseudo experiment is. But as you point out, that's never observed in the natural world. It's only observed when we set up these pieces of equipment like this.
never motionless in their little bit of rotation, but efforts are still made to minimize what could disturb their motion. When they are motionless enough, high-density masses should, in theory, be able to be placed close enough to the hanging masses to show an obvious gravitational force of attraction. I was significantly impressed with two videos by a fellow science teacher, Andrew Bennett. He has two very well done, well explained videos on the Cavendish experiment, and he shows all the steps involved, so that way anybody who wished to could reproduce his experiment.
Reproduce the results of the experiment after formulation of a hypothesis, after observing natural phenomena. So the step that you haven't done is shown us mass attracting mass in the physical and natural world. So that fails. You haven't done that.
The
That's
whole
to
thing
define
is
it
an
all.
abortion. Look at it. Look at the state of that. Even Cavendish wasn't in the shed when he had his balls in the shed. He's there, look, on the floor with a big air grabbing tube. He's got the cold air moving along the floor. And I mean, look at the state of that. Is there any, even if it was valid, that setup isn't, is it? That's apparently showing mass attracting mass. You've got a plastic tube hung from a ceiling with a big metal hook and some weights and a couple of bowling balls. And that is apparently showing us something that happens in the real world. It's beyond farcical, isn't it? But to me, exemplifies pseudoscience. This.
I think that those two videos together already showcase very effective, understandable, empirical evidence of gravitational attraction.
Anyone want to cover what empirical means?
Observable, testable, repeatable, and falsifiable. A summary of the scientific method.
But Andrew Bennett inspired me. For his experiment, he used bowling balls. I knew that I had access to lead bricks. Used to make movable radiation-blocking walls, I knew the educational outreach of a facility that uses them. And I was able then to get 2 on loan for my Cavendish experiment. I reasoned that if bowling ball material was already enough to get convincing results of gravitational attraction, then lead bricks, the effects would only be more pronounced.
Let's just quote Brian Cox again. There isn't really a force of gravity at all. That's Brian Cox. Gravity is not a force. That's George Musa. So you think that this 108-year out-of-date pseudoscience quasi-experiment is proving that there's a force of gravity and showing that mass attracts mass? It doesn't. It only does that in your contraption. You're never going to show me that as a natural phenomena.
Newton's law of gravity qualitatively predicts that if we have a Cavendish setup that is sensitive enough and use high-density masses, we should be able to observe mass attracting mass.
All right, looks up at clouds, releases helium balloon.
Key word, if we had a contraption that could be a parlor trick, that could be sensitive enough. Sensitive enough. How many times did you have to redo it to get it to look like there was gravity?
Also, he's said experiment several times. What was his hypothesis and his null?
He also keeps saying mass without defining it.
The hypothesis is if Cavendish, then torsion bar twist. It's not a Cavendish experiment, then no torsion bar twist.
Let's get into the classroom. Welcome to my classroom. And what I have behind me here is my attempt to reproduce the Cavendish experiment. For my setup, what I have are 2 meter sticks which have been taped together. And on either end of these 2 meter sticks, held there with some paper clips, are 2 1-kilogram masses on each end.
Can I just interject?
Go
on. I've done this at A-level physics. And what they wouldn't have dreamt of doing at A-level physics to demonstrate this is that we were given sealed units, yeah? Because airflow just negates anything that you're trying to measure in this quasi-experiment, yeah? So even when you're doing it at, A-level standards, where you're just repeating it, where it doesn't work, but even in their setup, they recognize that the movement of air is infinitely more force than what you're supposedly trying to measure, and therefore would corrupt the results. So even in there, you do them all of it in sealed units to prevent what's happening there. This is not just pseudoscience, is it? This is like junkyard science.
Uncontrolled experiment, like they don't have proper controls. No
empiricism. Yeah.
There's no empiricism. There's no hypothesis. There's no naturally observed phenomena. Arwen's at controls. Yeah, I'm not too concerned about that bit. No offense, Arwen.
Yeah, but even a colloquial version, right? I mean, they would have to do it in a vacuum chamber to get even close, and it's not going to work ever. I mean, it doesn't work.
They're just going
to...
They're playing with things.
Hold on, guys, in G+. Go ahead, Paul. It's quite useful for me to test that the lines work as well. Go ahead.
I was just thinking about this, though. Even the vacuum chamber, there's I think even light hitting that will create a heat differential and cause it to move, not even with wind, which means you have to do it in darkness, no light, temperature is exactly the same, no airflow, nothing. The only way that's the way it can be proved, because what's that little thing that you can, it's in a vacuum tube, you put light on it and it starts to spin. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's got
Yeah,
it's
John
light
Dee's
on,
one.
it's black on one
John
side.
Dee did it.
It's what?
Right, electric influences.
Yeah, there's
Like-
all that could factor in. Even slight static
Like-
changes can affect it. So they would not be able to remove any of all the variables that could potentially cause it. They can't.
My goodness. If they have to go to all that, why don't we just see it in nature display itself?
We do. It's
No, we
the
don't.
ball Earth and the sun and the moon. Don't
Let's
you
just
get it?
boil this down.
Because they can't.
The effect is only observed in the experiment, which means it's not an experiment, because you're trying to induce the effect by varying a cause of the effect that you're studying at step one. You don't induce the effect with the experiment. The operation is to use the setup, if you want to call the apparatus that you use to perform the experiment, which is what they're doing. They're taking the apparatus and inducing an effect and then describing that as a natural phenomena after the fact. When in reality, the order should be observe something happening in nature. They go, oh, why did that happen? So if this was a true experiment, it would be, check out those two masses moving towards each other. Why does that happen? Okay, well, let's vary and manipulate our presumed cause of that effect and see if we can cause the effect. That would be an experiment. When you vary that which you assume causes the effect to see if it causes the effect, that's an experiment. What he's doing is extracting out an effect by calling a contraption, parlor trick, an experiment, and saying, here's the effect. Like, no, Dumbo, the effect's supposed to be observed in nature if you want to call this science.
So it's not
One other
science.
thing too, QE said something about falsifiable. The thing is, they don't talk about how many times people can't make the Cavendish work. They only pick out the ones that seem to work, but how many times that they can't make, nobody, so other people can't make it work.
I'm sorry, I
So
know
I don't
that was
talk
addressed to
about
to QE, but I'm just going to address that. No, that's not what gives the method its empiricism, right? And when you say falsifiable, that's built into the null. So to be falsifiable means that when you vary a presumed cause, either it'll cause the effect or it'll validate the null. The null being, I vary A, it doesn't cause B. In other words, it's the absolute antithesis. That's where your falsifiability comes in. Because you're going to falsify... I'm nearly done. You're going to falsify one or other of those statements. You're going to draw a line through the one that isn't true.
No, I hear you. Trust me, but I don't. I mean, I'm working within their own understanding. So if they're saying it should be falsifiable, then it should be repeatable, which QE also said. But what they don't talk about the times where people can't replicate the results or they can't make the Cavendish work. They don't talk about those.
Again, I get what you're doing within the paradigm, but just to correct you in terms of what the repeatability aspect would be within scientific method, that would be to repeat the outcome of a hypothesis test. So if you vary and manipulate A and it does cause B, that's a successful validation of an alternative hypothesis, falsifying the null. But at that point, the repeatability is someone else showing that you haven't got something incorrect in the apparatus or the setup or the hypothesis itself by repeating it. So taking your A statement, varying it, and showing without any influence from you, the original researcher, that the outcome is the same. A does cause B. So you do it over and over and over and over again to show that no matter how many times it's done, it always has the same outcome. A always causes B. So that there's no human error incorporated in the methodology. That is the only aspect of repeatability, which once you've done it technically once, and you have done it correctly, assuming so, then it's always going to be the same outcome. So it matters not how many people do it or how many times they do it. It'll always show that A causes B because you falsified A not causing B in the experimental setup. It was part of the hypothesis. So I just want to clarify what it is. I know you're working with their paradigm saying, oh, you get different results from different experiments on different setups, on different days, in different places. Like, yeah, but that aspect of repeatability, if satisfied, wouldn't suddenly make it science, because the repeatability comes from the repeating the outcome of the hypothesis test.
But we have to go back to the basic understanding that we need to see the nature before they try to do some kind of a test to say, hey, this is what it is. Yeah, but we don't see the nature. And now you're going to go do this test with these two balls and all this, apparatus. And you're going to say, see, that proves what we don't see in nature actually exists.
Yeah. But
So we basically have a comedy of errors, and this guy's just playing it out from beginning to end.
Yes, that's correct. But in his mind, he's improving on it because he's got better quality balls, right? That's what he thinks.
Can I ask a fast question?
Go ahead.
Isn't this the same as what they do with that Sanyak? They start playing with things and try to come up with something.
What you mean is they conjure a phenomena from within the apparatus. That's what you're trying to say, right?
Yes.
Yes, this is conjuring the phenomena from within the apparatus, correct.
But with the Sanyak, though, Neil, it's called the Sanyak effect. It's not the claim with this being where this is claimed as an experiment. And in using that's the major objection when you hear it, is the dishonest nature of what it's setting up to be. The Sanyak effect is the Sanyak effect. It's not a Sanyak experiment that proves something. It's just something that demonstrates an effect. There's no claim of cause, is there? Whereas this is purporting to be an actual experiment.
I don't know. I watched that video a few times. They call it experiment a few times. In the Sanyak effect.
They might say in the experiment. But
Hold on. Like what? What do you mean? So it's not an experiment? Is it a test? Sanyak test?
My God, have you guys all got amnesia? Is QE on the panel right now? Do I need to make him bring out the pink writing? What's going on?
Mm-hmm. It's not me. I was going to say you got the Foucault pendulum, you've got Cavendish, now you got Sanya. What's next?
Right, back in the day, right, for the audience's benefit.
Phenomenon, if it's not a test or an experiment, isn't it just a phenomenon then?
Yes. But what we would do
Sanyak phenomenon.
No, it's not a phenomenon at all. That was my point.
Right. I just for the audience's benefit, Adam, I'm just going to get this out. I'm going to do it. Right. So back in the day, go back to some of the older episodes where the delusional ballers were under the misapprehension that they could somehow win when we actually do live on a flat Earth. And when they came in and offered us scientific evidence of gravity, and Cavendish was it, QE would suddenly appear out of nowhere and bring up his screen, and the first question off his lips would be, naturally observed phenomena, please. And in the little gap, with underneath it, hypothesis and null, and alternative. And all he did was fill in the blanks. When they say natural phenomena is mass attracting mass. Now, you can do one of two things at that stage, right? Number one, ask them where they see it. Number two, take it at face value. Okay. So the phenomena, the dependent variable, because you've got half the hypothesis by that point, is mass attracting mass. Okay, fine, take it at face value. Write it in the bright pink writing, because it's going to be embarrassing. And then ask them, okay, what's your presumed... It's not been varied and demonstrated as true yet. What's your presumed cause of the effect you're claiming, in this instance, mass attracting mass? And they would say, see how people's memory serves them. What would they say?
Mass.
They'd say mass.
Mass is the cause of mass.
They'd say mass. That's right. So you write down in your pink writing, mass as the cause. Because that's what they're going to be varying. Like this Dumbo. What's he varying and manipulating? Well, he's very proud of his manipulation of the type of mass he's going to use. He thinks he's smart, doesn't he? He's told you all about how he's got access to the good stuff, because that's what he's varying. So mass. So let's just read that out as a formulated hypothesis, given that the dependent variable is mass attracting mass and the independent variable is mass. So as a formulated hypothesis, we have, I give you If mass, then mass attracts mass.
Well, to be fair, if not mass, then mass is certainly not going to attract mass now, is it?
You were almost there with a nonsensical buffoonery of a null. No, the null would be if mass, then mass not attracting mass.
Right. But it is true, though, as a misunderstanding, that if you have no mass, well, then you'd have no mass attracting mass. So I think that would fit better in their misunderstanding of how science works.
It would be best to probably define it also.
Yeah, number one, let's define what the bloody hell mass is so that we can establish if we're going to be varying the resistance to acceleration, that would be inertia, or the amount of substance in something, that would be mole. But once we've got past that little problem, we're not going to stop at the point that we go, let me get it straight. Your cause is the effect, and the effect is the cause. You don't see this as any way being slightly circular in its reasoning. If mass, the thing you'll be varying, then mass attracts mass.
That's why I was laughing in the pre-show when they said Cavendish experiment. That if mass, then mass attracts mass. It's got to be the funniest thing I've ever heard someone articulate.
Oh, it has been by the rumpus. He articulated that specifically.
And Gem Panda.
Indeed.
And said that
Oh, there's many of them that you can lead down this avenue with pink writing. The problem comes when you don't write it down. So you say, well, what's your dependent variable? And they go, well, mass attracts mass. Okay, so mass. Okay, right, gotcha. Okay, so then a few minutes elapse with them waffling or talking through you or swearing at you or calling you an idiot. And then we get to them, back on track. Well, what's your dependent variable again? Mass attracts mass. So independent variable then? Well, no. Mass attracting mass isn't the dependent variable because I'm going to vary mass. The effect is gravity. Right, so you're going to change what you've already given. Yeah, that's how it would go on. And they'd start denying what they'd already claimed. But if you've got it written down in pink writing, they have a job doing that. Isn't that right, QE?
Yes, they did. Those were the days.
The days when they thought they could win. Because they thought they could come on the show and say, I've got an experiment that proves scientifically that we've got gravity mass attracting mass. Yeah, that's what they used to come. Because they thought they could win. And then slowly and painfully we peeled off their skin like we're doing with this guy now. Yeah, and calling him stupid. And claiming that he shouldn't have smashed his head into the pavement when he was skateboarding based on the moronic display of stupidity in his video. And people didn't think they were going to get that when they came here a few years back and used to tell us that if mass, then mass attracts mass.
Yeah, that was also before they all started coming here and telling us how science doesn't actually prove things. The same people that used to say science proves the globe, you stupid flirt. Those guys, yeah.
That's a very good point, Chocolate. This dude has told you that this is an empirical experiment. So what? So this dude is claiming that science proves 108-year out-of-date mass attracting mass. Quote, George Musa, gravity is not a force, end quote. That's what he thinks he's proving with science, doesn't he? And he thinks he's very smart with his clever materials. Yeah, but we get told that... Ruin my point. Go on. Who is that?
Sorry. I was just thinking, like, what would happen if instead of mass, you would say density? Because density is real, right? It's palpable. If you said density attracted density, it almost starts to feel like, well, density does seek its density, doesn't it? With the relative density. So if density seeks density, then maybe it is actually real. It's just because they insist on using mass.
Thank you for that wild speculation.
What the hell is that? Show me a picture of density.
Yeah, thank you for this wild speculation right towards the end of the live show when I'm trying to round out with a concise point about people claiming that they've got science for gravity, and here's someone doing exactly that, like we started off the show with. Right, so science claims. I'm really trying to round out this point, are we? Oh, go ahead.
He said 4 more hours.
Yeah, I just want to round out this point. So, yeah, they claim that would be ballers, that they have science for gravity. Here is an example of some complete numpty idiot telling his audience that we somehow have to square the circle of his belief in 108-year, out-of-date, non-force now bending 4D space-time, when demonstrating with a, quote, experiment. So he's claiming science. Right, justification finally reached. Why do we specifically ask for, any scientific evidence of gravity? Well, because they're claiming it, albeit with a burden of proof reversal fallacy where he tells us that this is flat earthers' ideas about his crappy claim he can't prove, when he sciences it with this shit. Excuse my French. Yeah, well, this isn't science, is it? As we've just ably demonstrated. There is no cause and effect reasoning based on a hypothesis here. There's a pseudo-science quasi-experiment, actually a parlour trick, to extract out a phenomena we don't observe in nature to say, well, there it is. Mass attracting mass. Meanwhile, clouds aren't going to the centre of Earth. Helium balloons go up, and gas isn't being poured down, go boom boom into puddles. Mass is not attracting mass. Neither does the heliocentric rhetoric assert that it is. I mean, they might have done 108 years ago until Einstein came along, but now they do not. But this numpty thinks they do, and thinks he can validate that which has been decried by all of the heavy hitters of his scientific nonsensical pseudo-science buffoonery in the form of heliocentrism, with people like Brian Cox and George Musa saying explicitly, gravity is not a force. But why dumbos think that they can prove it with exotic materials is beyond me. They simply don't know what science actually is. And before they realise that we did, they'd come here and show this crap to us and tell us that they've got science for gravity. Well, they do not. Right, who wants the last word before I shout out Mike? Give Sam go.
If I could on that, on the experiment side of things. So I did A-level chemistry and physics there, and I'd have gone into my chemistry lab and done the boiling water and go into any lab and do it. And every single student on that syllabus would repeat that experiment. When we did the Cavendish in A-level physics, after a good couple of hours, failing miserably, blaming your mate for touching the desk in some way, farting in the corner of the room, whatever, we'd go to the teacher, it's not working, sir. Well, don't worry, nobody ever gets that to work. So I'd remind you within the scientific method, the word repeatability. This doesn't even have that.
I think is it 16 Candles or something similar? I can't remember the name of the channel, where he's showing a Cavendish experiment at a university. And he can't lay his hands on one at a pinch, so he grabs one off the shelf and he's like, one of the students has hacked this open. Because they couldn't get it to work.
Sawed it in half.
That's right.
Because it's inconclusive. I even heard this like 20 years ago when I really inquired about the Cavendish tests. And somebody that was really into it said, like, yeah, technically it's inconclusive. Like, we don't really know. Sometimes it attracts or seems to attract, other times it just doesn't. And it's really kind of 50-50.
That was my point, Owen. And if that's the case, then it's not an experiment and it's not repeatable. It's
you're doing it
demonstrate.
Now.
And even if one guy manages to get some numbers.
Hold on, Adam. You've just done exactly the same thing that Paul did. So, repeatability, right, is irrelevant when it's not an experiment. So the first bit, it's not relevant.
No, having given them that's what I'm saying. If even in their world, that it's not repeatable. It doesn't demonstrate the same cause and effect each time. But it's hard because you're arguing some of the nuances that you don't necessarily have to go to. But I say even within that, you can demonstrate why it's not an experiment on that principle as well.
Well, the whole thing is so incredibly complicated and convoluted. I mean, gravity is for a long time not even claimed to be a force, yet I still to this day, at times hear about the fundamental forces of the universe, which include gravity. Like, it's just like it all just becomes this weird soup and nobody really knows what is what anymore, but they all keep going. Like, even in the higher circles, it's so weird. Like, why do they even stick to Cavendish when it's not a force? So what are you there to prove then?
Good question.
But why is
let me answer it.
Still
Let me answer it. Don't leave it
forces?
open. Because they need a force. That's why, Arwin. That's why they teach it you as a child. That's why it's described as a force. That's why Cavendish is still prevalent. That's why they won't correct people when dicks like this guy describe the force of gravity. It's required to be a force. even when people understand that it's not a force, even when their own guests, in the case of George Musa, tells them explicitly to their face that it's not a force, they will still try and justify the force that it has because it's required. It is just that simple.
Right.
Is
They
it
still call it
required
a
because we
fundamental
have-
force in the universe. It's so ridiculous.
It is.
Is it required because we have to be sticking to this ball?
Basically, yes. That's the essence
Oh,
of it.
Owen, is it
can I
not
just
called
read-
the fourth of the three fundamental forces?
Yes, it is. Yes, that's correct. It's the fourth fundamental force of three.
It's more like the fifth wheel.
Right, I'm going to do a heartfelt shout out to my own GoFundMe, right? And I'm going to do it in a way that's just sincere. Right, I have been stressing about stupid amplifiers for probably the entirety of this show. And as much as I love hi-fi and love my old equipment, which I've now taken out of commission, it does actually need to be in place to make the show work. So at the moment, I'm running on a bare bones system that is keeping the show running, but at the point of where I would hopefully only have to introduce it if something broke and I was getting something else repaired. So while it's alive and kicking, I don't necessarily want to overstress and blow up my brand new piece of equipment that I've got, as I was hoping to get 3 of them to replace the 3 that are outgoing. And this is, as I want to stress, a massive stress to me. So it's something I can concern myself with literally daily, blowing up these new amplifiers or this new amplifier that I've got, because I need 3. That's how the system has been wired for many, many, many years. And although the old equipment's been blowing up and being repaired over and over again, I want to cease that cycle. That's why I'm doing this GoFundMe. So as much as people might look and go, oh, Nathan needing new amps. Yeah, but I run the show with them and they are fundamental to what I do. And therefore it's a constant headache and a constant stress that I'm running on the absolute bare bones that this show can run on. And I want to resolve that with your help. So this is why I originally did a GoFundMe and have now gone to the effort of actually changing it to a Give, Send, Go campaign, so that people do actually share it, and people who are sympathetic to the fact that there is no money to be made doing Flat Earth shows, and the only way I actually do ever pay for anything ever is by the support of the people who watch the show. And unfortunately, that does mean occasionally asking for handouts with things that people will look at and go, wow, that's a seriously sophisticated piece of equipment. Actually, it's just an amplifier, but nevertheless, they'll go, well, surely you could just do it with headphones. Well, the answer to that is yes, I just don't want to, and I've got several £1,000s worth of equipment that I've already invested money in that is excellent, top-of-the-line stuff that just doesn't function properly because I can't afford to maintain it. As embarrassing as that may be, I do want to maintain it, so I've got a very high standard of show, regardless of the limitation of the people who are actually watching it. Yes, we don't get tens of millions of people watching the show. Does that mean I don't want it to be of the absolute highest standard? No, it does not. I still want it to be of the absolute highest standard because of the longevity I feel the subject has, and therefore I want all of these shows to be listenable in many years to come. And therefore, that's why I'm appealing to keep my high standard of equipment of a high standard. Not of the tens of thousands of pounds of standard that the outgoing amplifiers were that I originally purchased and have used and abused to keep the show running, but more like hundreds of pounds to get something bare bones that is nowhere near as good, but will hopefully last for several years and stop me from basically stressing about bloody amplifiers working every time I start the show. Will this work? Will it have gone bang? I don't want to do that anymore. I'm just sick of it. So hopefully people will sympathise and go, yeah, okay, I get it. You've got expensive equipment and that does require a certain amount of maintenance. And rather than spending it again and again, hundreds of pounds on maintaining thousands of pounds worth of amplifiers, buy something cheap and cheerful that'll hopefully have a couple of years at least with a warranty, and then you don't have to talk to us about bloody amplifiers ever again, and hopefully I don't have to stress about them ever again. So hence me doing a fairly long appeal to people, because I can see how people would look at it and go, I'm not going to support that. Amplifiers, no. Well, actually, yeah, they are extremely critical to what I do here, as much as that might not seem relevant, because I do talk about them a lot. It's something that I'd previously invested when I was rich, being a rep, and bought really, really good stuff. I don't want to buy really, really, really good replacements. I just want to buy the absolute bare minimum, in this case, guitar amps, just to get it to work without stress. So a couple of people have already supported the GoFundMe, which is now redundant. So don't use that, although I don't know how to shut it down. If I get round to it, many other things, I'll actually shut down the GoFundMe site as a campaign site, but it is still live, just redundant. As obviously I'm now using Give, Send, Go. As Chocolate saying, had exceptionally good success with it. So I hope that the people that were reluctant because of using GoFundMe may go, no, I do actually sympathise, and I do also want your show to remain at a high standard. And your lengthy appeals for people to support you where you simply cannot afford to support yourself in this regard I can get, even though it's a first world problem with high-end equipment, which this is, even though it's hundreds rather than thousands of pounds, which, as I say, the outgoing amps were. Nevertheless, I'm hoping to get to maybe half of this amount so I can buy one more amplifier, which will power the 2 speakers that I have, and that will be enough for me to stop e-begging all the time. I'll still leave the Give, Send, Go up and hopefully, get to the rest of the target. But in the meantime, I'm hoping in the short term, hence my lengthy e-begging, get to about half of what my current target is, which is around £900. So if I can, hopefully, by the time these 2 or 3 videos with a lot of e-begging in them go out, I'll have reached that target. I can buy the second amplifier and then just leave it and never mention it. And if people know about it, they'll hear it on an old show and then go back and support it if they want to. And maybe I'll trickle in the money for the third one to replace all of them. But in the meantime, I just want to get to the point where I know that I'm not overstressing the one that I have just bought brand spanking new by buying a second hand one to go alongside it. And then that's sort of at the minimum that I know I can just leave it and not stress ever again about it. So there we go. That's my Give, Send, Go campaign. If you did happen to support it, I would suggest that you don't actually set the tip amount to anything other than 0, unless you particularly want to support Give, Send, Go. Obviously, then set it to whatever the hell you like, but I would suggest you set it to other and then stick it at 0 after setting in your amount. And if indeed you don't necessarily want to give me any financial support in regards to this campaign, but you do now empathise, now I've moaned and said how much of a stress bloody amplifiers have been, then just share it, just stick it on your Facebook page, and maybe there'll be some techie out there that sympathises in the same way that I'm stressed and just wants to see the standard of the show remain high. Hopefully that would be the case, and that's why I'm appealing to you all. So that's pretty much it in that regard. I'll say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. I think there might have been a super chat, actually. Let's just see if I can read that out. Just we were rounding out. I think there was. Let's have a look. Yes, there was. So it was... Where's that gone? Was it me imagining? Oh, no, there it is. It's from JMails24. A bunch of amateurs here. Clearly all need to study more. Think of it however you want to do abracadabra. That's what it is. Done. Okay, I kind of followed that. I'll put it up on screen just so people can actually see it, because I normally butcher super chats. So there you go. That's that. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Can we do Go Send Me for my ZZ Top? Hey, Adam. Hey, Adam, on the sensitivity scale of this Cavendish, you said that in your class, the professor or teacher said, "Oh, no one gets that right," right?
Yeah, I still remember it. Yeah. Oh, no one ever gets that one to it, because you had to. Each week you had a different experiment, and people would be doing different ones. You know what I mean? Showing dropping balls and seeing how long it takes in that first year of A-level physics, and it was the only one that nobody ever got to work. And I always remember him thinking, well, "Why would you say that?" You know. I quit A-level physics after the first year. It was just shit because it was getting into that, and I'm thinking I was so many arguments with it. I just thought I'm not enjoying.
But if you make hang on, if you make an apparatus of any type, and you do it in such a way where the slightest thing, air movement or heat introduced to the room that causes air movement or whatever, you make it so sensitive, then you're going to have movement. And if that movement is not always in the direction you want it to go, much like the Foucault pendulum isn't, you have to keep redoing that one. It's just a parlor trick. My goodness sake, it's so obvious. I guess I'm just trying to imagine the lab coat teacher, a bunch of students, and no one saying, hey, teach. If we make this thing sensitive, the guy in the back could fart and it's going to move.
Remember when they used to come in with it on a daily basis? They used to come in with Cavendish.
Well, I read a lot of stuff on the Foucault pendulum, how they can't get it to work and they have to keep redoing it until it does what they want it to do. I mean, this is nonsense. This is supposed to be repeatable. This is supposed to be observed in nature. Nature doesn't say, look, I'll get it right next time. Everyone put your seatbelt on.
But the shit I love though was Adam's teacher. You don't get it to work. Don't worry, nobody gets that to work. What the
Imagine
hell?
being told that. It sticks in my head. I mean, that's like 30 odd years ago. It's still in there.
Exactly. And then 30 years later, people are telling you how this proves gravity. All you have to do is think about, like, wait a minute, my teacher told me this is garbage.
My teacher told me I don't believe it either. I just have to teach it.
So wait a second, Adam. A thing that you could not get to work, that nobody could get to work, now proves gravity. That checks out.
Repeatably crap.
They got to have it. They got to have it at all costs. It's their god.
Well, hold on. They do have the repeatability. It's repeatably garbage. So can't take that away from them.
Got him.
This is where if you let them have everything and apply their standards, they have to accept the null. As retarded as the null is, if you follow it to a logical conclusion, then the Cavendish experiment accepts the null. That if mass does not attract mass.
No, they don't accept the null. They just repeat it. They accept the R. Repeat it again. Do it again. Okay, I'm growing a ZZ Top here. Do it again. Oh, we got it this time.
But if you did take the results, 99.99% of them, then you do end up saying that if mass, then mass does not attract mass based on that quasi-experiment.
He was supposed to do the density of Earth anyway, right? In the actual paper.
He was measuring the density of Earth.
9,999% per second. That's what I thought you were going to do. You said 9,999%. I said, oh shit, another twist.
Second. Yeah.
Can you repeat the definition for empirical again?
Yeah, it's observable, testable, repeatable, falsifiable.
Now apply that to Cavendish.
You can't.
None of the above.
Let's start the first one. Observable. Where do you observe mass attracting mass?
Well, you've ruined it. So you've got to give them a bit to criticize more.
No, I don't observe it. I'll play the game. Second one?
Testable. Testable. Repeatable.
Testable.
Well, if I don't see it, how am I going to have a hypothesis to test something or manipulate the idea?
They can't go past one. But to have a bit of fun, you've got to let them.
All right, have a little fun, Adam. You take the 4 definitions that you gave.
Doing testable. Well, they are apparently testing it. I'm saying I'm giving it them. I give them things, then still the natural conclusion is to reject and accept the null.
That would be falsifiable.
Well, that yes, and then we've got the repeatability. Well, it consistently shows that if mass, then mass does not attract mass. Every time you set it up, as my teacher said, well, that never works.
Boy, you got bit by the Anthony Riley bug or something. I mean,
Yeah.
You're dead at step 1.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But if you go past that and just let them have it, still it doesn't lead them to or the logical conclusion that it leads them to is that, unfortunately, if mass, then mass does not attract mass.
Let them have it.
If you
Okay.
let 'em have everything, even mass.
That define mass.
Exactly. You can't get past that.
The correct hypothesis would be if undefined ambiguity, then undefined ambiguity attracts undefined ambiguity.
Exactly. But I'd have to go with if undefined ambiguity, then undefined ambiguity does not attract undefined ambiguity, as demonstrated empirically in the Cavendish experiment.
And as a baller, I say yes. Thank you for affirming. Now I can go away with my globe belief. That's absolutely correct. Thank you for doing that for me. It was a pleasure having you beg the question for me. Thank you very much.
Just show it. Just that this is too easy. Just show a helium balloon. Just leave go a helium balloon. It's all up. Well, it's easier than that. Like Nathan said, look up at the clouds. How'd they get there?
That skateboarder guy did exactly that, right? He literally had. I'm just going to go back to it. He had. He goes through his little waffle, and then puts a helium balloon. Not a helium balloon. A hot air balloon on screen. And find it.
While saying things go down. You gotta love these guys.
Sideways.
Point of order, Your Honor. I did like that you finally finished the statement. Go down, go boom, boom, go splash, splash. You finally did it. Thank you.
I've told you this, and I'll tell you again. Right. I'm not paraphrasing you. I'm paraphrasing numpty dipshit Thunderfoot Clown.
No, I was the original go down, go boom, boom, and then the splash, splash was added by Betty. That was the original.
Yeah, but Thunderfoot poured bouncy balls into a fish tank and said that gas is going down. And then as he cuts to the shot of it going down, because gas is the same as bouncy balls, he says, and boom.
Yeah, but way before, years before that. Remember that I'm just talking about the statement. I need credit.
You were the originator of that. Gas go down, down, go boom, boom.
No, gas go down, gas go down, go boom, boom. It's real easy. You fucked it up.
Yeah, splash.
And splash, splash was added by Betty.
You mean Brian?
This is where we're at.
Shout out to Betty.
So I guess all you have to do is have a lab coat and do the same thing this guy did, and everybody oohs and ahs and says, see, science proved it.
Not if you have critical thinking skills above ground, squirrel.
Well, that's a whole other matter. When we're talking to people, as we all do, we're asking them to start there, but they don't start there. They're just parroting what they saw someone in a lab coat say. And then I'd say to them, well, have you thought about your words you just used? Is that ever proven? Is that observable? Is that repeatable? Is that testable? Is that falsifiable? Or did you just take that guy in the lab coat's word for it? Well, what, you mean they're lying to me? I go, well, they might be, but how would you ever know if you don't think and ask good questions? I mean, you think people tell the truth all the time?
No, people take what other people say at face value. For example, ground squirrels actually have exceptional critical thinking skills.
So they're not nuts?
Nuts. I got one by my target now. He gets underneath my canvas to my target, and he goes in there and eats. So I got a little buddy now. But remember I said this the other day. I've been saying this for a while now. See, all the ball tarts have, because all this is moron theatrics. All they got is photos, NASA photos of a sphere tart. That's everything else surrounding it. All they're doing is mindlessly parroting Wiki or Discovery Channel. And they think they have their back, but the people that they think they have their back, those people are pseudoscience morons, right? So this is just a big carnival tent. Once you get really down to it, their proof for their sphere tard is NASA photos of a sphere tard. That's all it says.
Images.
Pictures from
CGI.
space?
Yeah,
No.
that's all they got.
It's not even photos.
Exactly. and there is no vacuum of space.
This is an observable force of attraction between objects. This is gravitational force. Beautiful, observable, empirical, gravitational force.
Empirical. He doesn't know what empirical means.
No. We had to define it earlier.
Well,
So
also,
So that same thing that Adam's teacher said never works right, this guy got it to work right.
And
He's a
and he's still
skateboarder.
calling it a force.
Yeah. That's the bit I wanted to focus on. He keeps saying it's a force. Look, I'm showing you the beautiful force of attraction that is gravity. No. What, bending geodesics in space-time as opposed to this three-dimensional force that has been superseded? No, mate, you don't know what you're talking about. You're an idiot.
Hold on
Yeah.
a second, Nathan. He's a skateboarder. I think he knows what force is. You know, he's dealing with forces every day.
Yeah,
well, Newton would call him a
Maybe
balloon.
dealing with a force, but it's not gravity.
Dealing with head trauma.
He may-
Head trauma.
Head
He
trauma.
may be a skateboarder, but this is the wrong wheelhouse for him.
So
Well, the
did we go-
guy that he would. Oh, sorry, John.
yeah, I was going to go on a little bit of not a rant, but it's not only George Mooser from Scientific American that says gravity's not a force. You got De Sitter back in 1916. In Einstein's new theory, gravitation is of much more fundamental nature. It becomes almost a property of space. Gravitation is thus, properly speaking, not a force. 1916. From Caltech. Einstein came up with the theory of general relativity in 1915, the prototype of all modern gravitational theories. Its crucial ingredient involving a colossal intellectual jump, yeah, right, is the concept of gravitation not as a force. Brian Cox, there isn't really a force of gravity at all. George Mooser, we already went over it. Gravity's not a force. From Universe Today, gravity is not a force between masses. From the University of California, Northridge, strictly speaking, gravity is not a force. From Phys.org.com, gravity is not a force. From New Scientist. So although the Earth appears to be pulled towards the sun by gravity, there is no such force. From PhysLibreText, that answer is that gravitation is not a force between two objects. From the Physics Hypertext book, gravity isn't a force. From Joylyn Bloomfield, PhD Physics, Cornell University. So to summarize, general relativity says that matter bends spacetime, and the effect of that bending of spacetime is to create a generalized kind of force that acts on objects. However, it isn't a force. For God's sake.
Thank
you. Well, don't forget.
Somebody. Beautiful, observable, empirical, gravitational force. Thank
gotta
you
be
for
able to
joining
add.
me on this episode.
Good.
we got to be able to add to that list. Eric Valinda, he said, go on top of the roof and shout it. Gravity is not a force.
Also, Newton would say if you think it's a force, you are a retard.
How can you add to that list? But they didn't get the memo.
This is what we got. We've got skateboarders that think that they're better than us, so they make these videos and just embarrass themselves. Why? Well, because in his mind's eye, society has told him that flat Earth is dumb. And without doing any research, he can just come up with this crap and parrot it, and then replicate it, and then tell his audience he's done an experiment. And yet, you've just had a dozen quotes from Quantum Eraser with modern-day scientists describing gravity not as a force. Yet this Dumbo literally thinks it is.
Observable, empirical, gravitational force.
The only thing he observed was his apparatus. That doesn't at all happen in nature.
Indeedy weedy. Right, with that, I'm going to say one more plug for my GoFundMe campaign, which isn't GoFundMe anymore. It's Give, Send, Go. But yeah, hopefully you'll all support that campaign, and I'll stop stressing about it and stop e-begging every single show, because I will. I'll keep doing it. So please please support the campaign, if nothing else, to stop me having to e-beg for it daily. But with that, I'm going to say another massive, huge, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting up my Give, Send, Go campaign and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.